Greetings and welcome to video lesson number 3, how to set up a session using Cakewalk and import audio. When you launch Cakewalk, you will start with a screen similar to this. There are multiple ways to start a new project. You can use the New Project tab from the middle of the screen, or you can go to the upper left by selecting File and then New. However, in order to create the correct project parameters, you need to know the sample rate and bit depth of the audio that was recorded. Yes, Cakewalk can change it from one to another, but to reduce potential side effects, let's stick with the original parameters. To find the parameters of the files you're going to work with, start a new session without saving it, as if you're going to import the audio, and when you select the files, it'll give you the data. So let's go ahead and just hit Empty Project. Here we have an empty project. We're going to come up here, File, Import. This top one says audio, not audio CD, just import audio. And I keep everything on an external hard drive. So I'm going to come down here to my G drive, under Strong Tower Radio. And I have one here called Lesson 3 Files. These are just some example files we're going to use. Now, before I actually import these, I can just click on any one of these. Under here where it says Attributes, here it says 44.1 kilohertz, that's 44,100 hertz, which is 44.1 kilohertz, and 32 bits, and this file is in mono. Now if I click on each of the other files here, file lengths are a little different, but all of them are the same 44.1 kilohertz and all 32-bit. They're all mono if that matters. But that at least tells me that the session I need to use is going to be 44.1 kilohertz at 32-bit. So I can go ahead and cancel all this. And just come up here and say File, New. 44.1 is going to be my default, so I just got to change my bit depth to 32-bit. Notice this default one up here is 44.1 and 16-bit. So now that I have 44.1 and 32-bit, I'm going to change the location. I can pick my location. Where am I actually going to be at? So I can just scroll on down here to my external hard drive. And let's say I'm going to put it in my Lesson 3 files. Now what this will do, when I actually save it, it'll create an additional folder inside of here. So I don't need to come down here and say Create New Folder. It'll create another folder inside this folder where I have my raw files. So I hit OK. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select Empty Project. And what this will do is, this means when I actually create the project, there's not going to be any existing tracks over here. Now I can go ahead and name this project right away. So let's call it Cakewalk Video Lesson 3. And I hit OK. So now I have created it, and again up here it says Cakewalk Video Lesson 3. So here we go, I'm ready to go. So now I can come up here to File, Import, Audio, and again go back to my location, which for me is going to be my external hard drive. Come to my Lesson 3 files, and here's my new session that I just created. Let's say I want to import all 4 of these files. I just highlight all 4 of them. What I'm doing, I'm just selecting the top one, and then I can select any one. I'll just pick one at one end. Hold down Shift, go to the far end, the bottom one here. When I have all 4 of them selected, then I just hit Open. What'll happen then is it'll go ahead and bring these into Cakewalk one at a time. So when I come up here to the top where it says Loading Audio, Mono 32-bit, and again, underneath that, it says 44.1 at 32-bit. It's going to import these one at a time. So the bars across, so now I have my first track done. And now there's my first track. And now it's going to start working on the second track. So depending on how many tracks you have, this could take a little bit. This could take, a short amount of time if you've got just one clip and it's real short. Here I've got 4 of them, and each of them are about 20 minutes long. So it's going to take a lot longer. So what I may do is just go ahead and stop, and we'll just kind of edit out the part we don't need and come back when we have everything imported. Once the import has completed, you're going to see all of your files located here. They're going to be small files so that they're not going to be fully expanded to the window, but they're all going to be there, and we'll show you how to expand those in a little bit. However, see this little asterisk after the end of the file name? That means I've made changes since last time that I did anything. So here I have not done anything. So what I want to do now, before I do anything else, is File, Save. I can just do the Control S of the keyboard shortcut. Now everything is fully saved. Now what I can do is actually start setting this up to look like what I want to look like when I do editing. There are some things on the screen that I'm just not going to need. For example, what's here on this left side. This channel strip, I'm not going to need this. So I can come up here to this double arrows where it says collapse and just get rid of that. I can also use my keyboard shortcut, which is just the letter I. I as in Isaac or India. And just press the letter I and collapse that as well. Same thing on the far right side. I can come up here and hit the collapse box, or I can just hit the letter B as in Barbara on the keyboard and make that arrive or disappear. Now, right now, these are nice and small. I need to see them better. So I can do one thing I can do is just press the letter F on the keyboard, F as in Frank. And what that'll do is that'll take whatever size they are and expand them to vertically match the availability that we have. Another thing to notice, my cursor at 415. So when the files were imported, they all imported to 415. So when I come back to 1, I'm going to have some blank space in here. Is that a problem? No. We'll show you how to do this because we'll just take all these and slide them over. But be wary of wherever your mouse is at, that, at least here up on the timeline, wherever you're at, that is where it's going to import a new file. You can also personalize the display that you have here. For example, when we first came in, we had all these things on the side. We may have something else down here at the bottom. And come look up here. Now I got to hit F again and resize it to see everything. Okay. But I have all this stuff that I really don't need. So I can hit I, then B, and then D, and get rid of all that stuff down there. Or wouldn't it be nice if I just made a template so that it always went to the same thing, considering I only want to look at certain things when I'm doing editing for Strong Tower Radio? Well, guess what? I can. Up here, in the upper right corner, currently it says Mix, but I'm not going to be mixing anything. I'm going to just be creating, or I'm actually just going to be editing. And really what I want to do, I want to look at these waveforms here. In fact, where I've got all this stuff on the side, I'm actually going to bring this over even further. I'm going to make those go all into one row. So now I've got the maximum. I could even go further, but now I've got a much bigger amount. Hit F again. Okay, so now my waveforms are nice and big. I have everything off the side here. I don't have anything else I don't need. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just say, hey, I want to see this? Well, up here, these are called workspaces, and I can actually, so I want to make a new workspace just for that. So I'm going to have a new workspace, and we'll just call it STR Edit for all my Strong Tower Radio when I'm just doing editing. And I'm going to hit OK. Now, I do other projects, so I may have other purposes. I may want to do some recording, and if I'm doing recording, okay, now I've got a lot of parameters down here that I can look for when I'm recording. I've got a channel bar off to the side, different things up top. But now, notice when I go right back to here, I'll even go to another one. We'll call Arranger, see what this is. Okay, this is a little different. Let's try Advanced. What does that mean? Okay, now I got my channel strips off to the side, still got some stuff. I got this over here that I really don't need. But notice when I go back and select STR Edit, it comes right back to what I told it to be. So now, anytime in the future, not just video lesson number 3, but video lesson number 4, video lesson number 93, wherever I want to down the line, I can come in here and this will automatically bring me to these parameters. Now, it may or may not, and I honestly have not tested, it may or may not be at full size like this. For example, I can shrink these down a little bit. They may not be as big, but I can just hit the letter F and bring them up again. Or if I want to, I can come over here to the side, hit the negative magnifying glass icon and shrink them back down vertically. Now, there are other things we can do as far as what we see on the screen here. If I hold down the Alt key and press the mouse wheel up and down, it does a zoom out and a zoom in. Okay, that's holding down Alt and just scrolling the mouse wheel up and down. Also, if I let go of the Alt and press the Control key, hold down Control and press and scroll the mouse wheel, now it's going to take the entire waveform, the entire timeline, everything, and scroll that left to right. It's going to be the equivalent of grabbing this little block down here and grabbing that left and right. Well, rather than grabbing that, I can leave myself up here. Just use the Control to slide back and forth and go to the Alt to zoom in and out. So I can kind of zoom in here, zoom out, okay. And I can do all of this with just one hand on the keyboard, one hand on the mouse. Other things I like to do is I like to turn off this option up here for this grid. I turn off this metronome option. And really within my Strong Tower Radio edit, I can even get rid of some of these other things up here that I'm really not going to need. So if I just come up here to my top and click on it, right click, and look at all the modules is what I'm looking at up here at the top. Well, I'm not going to need this loop. Loop is this thing right here. Long story short, I don't need that. So I can come up here and just deselect that. Well, I've got all these other parameters right here. Long story short, if you're just starting out, you don't know what they are. If you don't know what they are, you're probably not going to need them. So we can kind of get rid of some of those options as well. Mix recall. Another thing, I'm not going to need that right now, so let's just get rid of that. Now I've got down just basics here of what I'm actually going to be looking at when I'm looking up top here. Export. Well, I can get rid of that too. I might not need that. And you can start playing with and without various icons that you have up here. And again, you can come back over here and hit save. I don't need a new one because I've already got it. STR edit, it's already selected, and I can just hit save workspace. So now I have everything up here. So now if I change this to another one, I have all this other stuff up there I don't need. Go back to my other mix one. When I come back to Strong Tower Radio Edit, okay, I got just the things up here. That's all the things I care about. I have my timeline. I can know where I'm at. I can press here. It goes back to the very beginning. Or if you notice, I can hit the Control Home. Very end. Control End. So these are some of the ways you can actually speed up and personalize your window to have it look like just what you want it to look like. If you want to see some other things, that's fine. You can look at them too. And you can have multiple options up here. I have just one for editing as well as these other ones here. You can have multiple views depending on what you want to see. Maybe you want to go back and forth between a few things. So I can go back and forth between this one and let's say basic. Okay, basic, I got all these things here, but they're nice and scrunched in the middle. Okay, maybe I want to do that. Maybe I want to display them in a different way. However, I wish to personalize this thing. Okay, but I got this thing on the side I don't want. So let's just say, okay, I don't want that. I'll just go back to edit. Oops, see, I can drag things around. I can get myself in a lot of trouble playing with this stuff here. I can resize everything. I can close, snap everything. Or let's say, just say resize auto. What does that do? I don't know. But you can go through here and just personalize this towards whatever you feel like. See how small means everything's small. It's a little too hard to read. So now I'm going to resize it for large. That makes it a lot easier to read. Views, other things you can do up here as far as personalizing what and how you see things. But now that I have a session, I've made my changes. I'm going to come back to File, Save. And so what I've done now is I've imported my audio. I've brought it in here. Everything's aligned. I'm going to hold down Alt and kind of look at what we got here. So here's some audio, some waveform. So, okay, this looks just about right. And so I can start personalizing this. I've got it how I want it to look. So now I can start actually doing my job of editing. And that's going to be in our next video when we actually start getting into the editing. Here we're just setting up our session. We imported it. We got it up here. It's 44.1 kilohertz. It's 32-bit. Everything's on the screen. We'll start getting into later on as far as how to edit one track versus all the tracks at the same time. One thing you want to make sure you do, though, is when you keep everything like this, you can actually export the entire session. This is one big advantage. Now I can take my entire session and upload this to the Strong Tower Radio servers. How can I do that? If you notice when we come back here to our import, whenever we imported our files, we click on our things, there's this little box here that says Copy Audio to Project Folder. What that means is all four of these that are out here, if I actually go into the session itself, you notice I've duplicated all of them now inside the session. So what happens now is when I come here into my video lesson inside here, all of what I need is now inside here. Now we're only looking for audio files, so you don't see the actual Cakewalk video lesson number 3 file down here. What I mean by that is I can come here and say save as. Now that I've saved my file, okay, there it is. But let's say I want to have one just like this, where I've made no changes whatsoever. Now I'm going to make a second one called edit. And the one called edit, I'm going to save that. And this is going to be the one where I'm actually going to have things change. So if I ever want to revert back to where there's no changes, I can do that if I ever were to need to do so. But now any changes I have this other one. So when I come here, I'll just, like I'm going to open one file. I have my original one, and now I have one called edit that I can use. So hopefully this completes everything that we're going to need as far as working with Cakewalk, starting a new session, starting the session properly, and getting things all set up. In the next videos, we're going to get into actually editing files, and hope to see you there.